now, once you have all these security roles and responsibilities defined, right? You have to start your security journey from somewhere. Okay. You have to start your journey from somewhere, the starting point. So you need a starting point. So you need a starting point, right? SP. Now, look at, if I tell you that you are the CISO of this company, go and start managing the security of this organization. What will happen? You'll grasp in the darkness. So you need some kind of starting point. And those starting points are generally provided by frameworks. And there are a lot of frameworks, okay? One of the most common frameworks is ISO 27001. You have NIST SP 853. You have COBIT. You have Octave. You have agile-based risk management systems. There are many. Okay. What you should be aware of is generally these four. Okay. So once a framework is available to you, doesn't mean you have to abide by the complete framework. The framework is just to help you, let you create your own framework out of that. Okay. So framework is at the top, right? You carve out, you scope and tailor what is required out of the framework. What is applicable to you? Okay. Those of you who would have done ISO 27001, we do a risk management and we go to the controls and they see what is the statement of applicability of controls. Out of 93 controls, what are applicable to my organization, right? And that is what scoping is, that is what tailoring is, that is what baselining is, right? So what we do is, whatever framework is available, we take framework as that's why it's a frame. It's a frame. Okay. You pick up what is applicable to you. Okay. The first amongst them is NIST 853. Okay. So NIST 853 is a security and privacy framework for US federal agencies. That means all the US government agencies, okay, what are the federal agencies are, they are supposed, this becomes their guiding principle. If they have to develop they need a starting point, what to do? They go and visit NIST SP 853. Okay. Then we have something called ISO 27001. Okay. Now, ISO 27001 is a group of standards. Okay. Now, ISO is International Standardization Organization. Okay. It's a group of 137 common countries who've specialists come down and create open standards, which can be adopted by anyone. So ISO 27000 series looks after information security. Okay. And out of this, ISO 27001 is called the ISMS, Information Security Management System. How to manage information security in your organization. It has got 10 clauses, right? And 93 controls. Okay. You carry out a risk assessment and carry out control gap assessment. And then you apply the controls and then you revisit the entire process again and again. So ISO is a open standard. Anybody can take it and adopt it in your organization, right? Then next is something called COBIT. COBIT is a very, very well-known framework, right? It is used for IT security, mainly for IT security, right? It is called Control Objectives for Information Technology. Basically, all your IT systems, how to implement security controls around your IT systems. Okay. Now, COBIT is a comprehensive framework, right? It's a comprehensive framework. It covers an organization end to end, from starting to middle point. Okay. Whatever IT systems, it covers holistically the entire organization from end to end. This is how you remember certain frameworks. Okay. You also have ITIL. ITIL is, if I remember, it's a library of certain good practices which an organization can implement it in their IT processes. Okay, right. So this is the starting point. So once you come to security management, the framework becomes your starting point, right? Now, once the framework has been identified and you've said that this is how we will implement security in our organization, whether COBIT, whether ISO, whether NIST SP 853, you need to identify that, what is applicable to you, and then you refer it as your starting point. And from there, you form your security policies. You had a broad information security policy there, but now you are going to system specific security policies. These are your system specific policies. Once as part of governance and security management, you had formed the InfoSec policy, right? In this InfoSec policy, you will say that we will carry out a risk assessment. Okay. You will find out what are your compliance requirements and what is the framework you are going to follow, right? From there, the starting point, and once the framework has been defined, now you carry out your system specific policies. What all systems are there? What all policies are required? Access control is required. HR policy is required. Access, acceptable use policy is required. Depending upon whatever the organizational processes are, you start creating security policies for your organizational specific needs. Got it? You do not have to create what is there in the framework. You have to scope it and tailor it as per your requirements. Okay. One of the most common policies which is there in all organizations is called the acceptable use policy. What is an acceptable use policy? An acceptable use policy is a policy that all the systems which are being given to users are used in a proper manner as per the overall organizational security posture. Okay. And violation of such policies might result into certain kind of penalties or termination or warnings, right? So once policies have been defined, now what is a policy? A policy is something which is mandatory in nature, right? Because if you don't make the policy mandatory, then what is the use of having the policy? People will not follow it. Okay. So once policies are, been done, okay, then you standards. Okay. And standards are also again compulsory in nature. Now, suppose you made a policy for data privacy and you say the standard which we are going to follow is, say, HIPAA. Okay. That means you have to be compulsorily implementing HIPAA requirements. Okay. Otherwise, there is no use of having a standard. A standard keeps a commonality wherever it is implemented, right? And that's why standards are compulsory. Okay. Now, to implement standards, you might have a certain minimum threshold of security, because this is required for all systems. Okay. You might have security more than this, but you cannot have a security less than a defined threshold. Such defined thresholds are called baselines, right? So we, if you remember, if you want to do system hardening, okay, Windows system hardening. So what do? You download a baseline image and you push the baseline image to all the machines across your organization. Why? common platform of security across the organization. Okay, it's called a baseline. Okay, in the army, what was our baseline? Our baseline was all units will have a perimeter, security. It will have only one access point and one exit point, which will be armed and guard at all times. There will be a central guard at. It was a standard which was followed across all units, big, small, everywhere. It was a standard. Okay, that was the policy for security. Okay, physical security. Okay, there were specific policies in army, right? Where will the weapons be kept? And it was very, very categorical where, how, when, and it was brutally same across the entire organization of 14 lakh strong army, right? So what I'm trying to say is a standard is a compulsory thing. But to meet that standard, there has to be minimum basic threshold, which is everyone will meet. And finally comes the guideline. A guideline is something which can be followed. It is not compulsory. It is a guiding light, right? So it is not compulsory. It is kind of a best practice kind of a thing which can be followed. Okay. A guideline could be, your password should be as long as possible, right? Try to make your password as complex as possible. People may not follow it. You might have a rule. Beyond that, you might say use a passphrase, but people may not follow it. It's just a good guideline. Okay. After this comes what is called SOPs. Now, SOPs are standard operating procedures. They are system specific. You cannot have a unified procedure across the board. A physical entry access control system may not be similar to a single sign-on mechanism. Both are access control mechanisms, but you cannot have same procedures for both the systems. So therefore, SOPs are system specific. They are compulsory. That's why it's a procedure. If you violate the procedure, system security will get downgraded or it will affect the security of the system.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe our channel.